Welcome to the video. I'm Ryan, Triathlon.com, and we're going to bring you some discussion points about why you should be in the aero position on your tri bike. Doing 10 Ironmans at this point and several 14 or 15 half Ironmans and several other Olympics and sprints. So many times I've seen people, even at the 20-30 mile mark on a full Ironman race, not using the aero bars and being out on the drops, and they're already giving up so much. They're putting themselves at a disadvantage by not using those aero bars as much as they possibly can, especially earlier on in the race when your back is not as tired, your body's not as tired to hold that position. But we're going to talk about why you should be in the aero position. So this is, I guess, my convincing point to try to get you to stay in aero as much as possible. And the discussion point of it kind of goes into, do I need a road bike? Do I need a tri bike to do my race or something like that, depending on, you got 8,500 feet of climbing, maybe a road bike is kind of a better advantage. We got 4,500, 5,000 feet of climbing. You're going to go downhill too. So then it becomes a little bit more advantageous to have a triathlon bike. So we're going to that's my position on it anyway. Some other people have some different ideas on it, but I'm going to go with that direction. So we're going to talk about a couple of different points why you should be in aero as much as possible on your bike. So all the forces you have to overcome on the bike, two greatest obstacles are the air and gravity. You can avoid the gravity debate by riding flat roads. We still have overcome air resistance. So flat roads, gravity's not the problem. Yeah, sure, if you're going uphill, then it becomes a gearing issue. But if you're going downhill, then you're fighting air resistance going down that hill. And, the faster you go, the more resistance you can get, more air force resistance you're going to get on the wind when you're going down. Because even if there is no breeze, you're still going through the air and you're still going to get resistance from that air. So depending on how fast you're going, or how fast you're not going to go because you are not in an aero position when you're going downhill. So we'll talk about other videos of how to go downhill and be safe about it and that type of thing. So make sure you tune in for those. But just keep in mind, of all the forces you overcome, the greatest obstacles are gravity and wind, or at least the air resistance. So gravity, we're not really going to talk much about because there's only so much you can do about gravity. It is what it is. You can't really change it. You can lose some weight, and that kind of helps out in the gravity situation, but we're talking about air resistance. So point number 2, at 10 miles per hour, 50% of your effort goes to overcome wind resistance. So 50% of your energy and effort is overcoming wind resistance, not just like, trying to get faster or anything like that. So whatever the air is putting out at you, the wind and everything, 50% of your effort at 10 miles per hour. At 40 miles per hour, it jumps to 90%. So most of us aren't going 40 miles per hour, but it's kind of a sliding scale. So wherever you're at in there, if you're going 20, it's going to be over 50% of your energy is going to overcome air resistance. And where do you think that air resistance comes from? It comes from the surface area of you plus your bike. So I say that to bring up the point that there's so many things you could do. You could go buy, the biggest, baddest, or smallest, baddest tri-bike with the smallest amount of frontal surface area possible. $10,000, you get it like a sliver and the most aerodynamic frame out there possible. Or what you could do is put yourself in aero position and save quite a bit of resistance by cutting down the surface area that is coming in contact with the wind. Now, if you're broad-shouldered like I am, I have to have my bars out kind of a little bit wider than I would like, just because it makes my shoulders sore to be uptight like this all for 112 miles. So that does cause a problem. But if you're in that aero position, you're tucked down in the aero position as the bikes are designed, either up on the hoods or riding in a road bike position, or even in the drops in a road bike position, you're cutting into that 50%, 90%, wherever you're at in that sliding scale, how much effort and energy you're putting into overcoming the wind resistance because of that surface area that you're presenting into the wind. So keep that in mind. Studies have shown the classic upright riding positions with your hand on the hoods. The regular road bike is the highest drag position. So highest drag is sitting up on a road bike with your hands on the hoods in the geared positions like you normally would. Probably be down the drops, be the next position, and then being on the drops in an aero bike because it brings you up a little bit forward. So instead of being upright, you're a little bit more tilted over. So you got a little bit less surface area hitting the wind. For all my physics people out there, very rudimentary take on it. But when you're in an aero position, you're leaned down the furthest. That is the best possible position to be in to minimize the surface area that the wind is hitting and slow you down with. So keep that in mind when you're out there riding your road bike around. It's like, well, do I ride the road bike or do I ride the tri bike? I've got 4,500 feet of climbing, especially like Ironman Des Moines. We have about 4,500 feet of climbing, but I tell you what, it felt like there's a lot of slow gradient climb uphills Then towards 70-mile mark, we had some nice headwind going on. 10 to 12 miles per hour, nothing crazy, but enough to just, if you weren't in that aero position, you're losing probably 1 to 2 miles per hour. There's a few times I had to pop up, stretch my back, do other things, and you just come to a grinding halt. But once you're in that aero position, it becomes a little bit hard, a little bit more easy to overcome that wind resistance. There are some considerations that being in the TT position will reduce some oxygen intake and efficiency, but the savings, less drag, more than makes up for those losses. So you're leaned over, you're closing down the diaphragm a little bit, you're kind of reducing your ability to take in full breath when you're kind of scrunched over doing the air position. But the loss that you're experiencing there in your energy and your output and the whole metabolic equation, you're making up a lot more being in that air position because you're not having to fight the wind. You're not spending as much energy fighting the wind as you would losing energy being in the air position, if that makes sense. So you're not losing as much. You're losing a little bit, when you're contracting that diaphragm and everything, and your lungs and your whole upper sternum area is a little bit compressed. You can't bring in as much air as you'd like, but in the grand scheme of things, again, studies have shown you're not going to overcome the wind resistance of being up either on the hoods or up in the drops in your GT bike. Now, it's not to say you have to use I don't want to be here saying that you have to use a triathlon bike. Now, I would highly recommend one if you've got access to one, if you've got the ability to have one. But at the end of the day, it will save you time over 24 miles for an Olympic, 56 for a 7.3, 112 for a full Ironman distance race. It may not make you necessarily that much faster, but when you're saving 20-30% of your energy and effort, when you're looking at a 26.2 mile run, especially like Ironman Chattanooga, where you got a little bit some climbing to do on those hills, you want all the energy and power that you can possibly get. So being in aero position will help you save that energy, even though it may not result in like huge. You may be half 1 mile per hour faster, maybe 2 miles per hour faster. That's kind of on the higher end. But when you get down to T2, you get off your bike, you're going to have that much more energy to work with to do your run than you would if you were in a less aerodynamic position. So that's my quick little tip. Hopefully it helped you out and kind of shed some light on why people are always like, oh, aero's the way to go, and aero's you have to be. So hopefully this helps you out. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'll get notifications. If you see it on Facebook, this helped you out, give it a thumbs up. See it on YouTube, give me a like, give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button, the notification button to see when I put out future videos and tips about this or other race courses. With that, I'm going to wrap up the video, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy training out there, and we'll see you at the finish line.